The moment my dad slid the envelope across the table, everyone already knew who it belonged to, because my parents had never been subtle about who their future hope was supposed to be. Mason sat straighter, grinning before the flap even touched his fingers. My mom watched him like he hung the moon. And me? I felt my stomach tighten because I already knew what was coming. "Go on, open it," Mom urged, her voice warm and proud. Mason tore the flap dramatically, pulling out the check like he was revealing a winning lottery ticket. His eyes widened. 40,000? Are you serious? They burst into applause, literal applause, while I just sat there blinking, caught between shock and that familiar sting behind my ribs. Dad clapped Mason on the back. "That should help you get your life started. Down payment, business idea, whatever you choose." Mason lifted the check toward the light like it was sacred. "This is insane. I love you guys." And then, without even trying to hide it, he smirked at me. Mom finally looked my way. "Harper, don't make that face." "I'm not making a face," I said quietly. "You are," Dad added. "This dinner isn't about you. Be happy for your brother."
Happy, right?
Because nothing screams "celebrate with us" like watching your sibling get an investment while you get a lecture. I forced a smile. "I am happy for him." Mom folded her hands, her tone shifting to that soft, condescending sweetness she always used with me. "But this is why your father and I keep telling you, stability matters. Mason works in finance. He has a plan. You still bounce around with that social media thing." "That thing pays my bills," I replied. "Barely," Dad muttered. "It's not a real career, honey," Mom sighed. "Branding?
Content?
It's just not secure. You're 27. It's time to settle down into something professional." My chest tightened. "I'm actually building something. Slowly, but—" "Slow isn't good enough," Dad cut in. "Your brother shows discipline. You show passion. Passion doesn't build a future." Mason chuckled under his breath. "Don't take it personally, Harp. Not everyone's meant for big moves." The words hit like a slap. Not everyone's meant for big moves. He said it like it was fact. Like it was my role in life to stay small so he could shine. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice steady. "I've been working with actual clients. I've scaled stores. I've helped build brands from nothing. I have ideas, good ones, for my own line too." Dad waved a hand. "Ideas aren't results," Mom added, "and we're not throwing money at something risky. We love you, but we can't support every little digital experiment you want to try." Digital experiment. That was how they saw everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd scraped together with late nights, unpaid trial work, and long-term clients who trusted me. A silly hobby. Mason slipped the check back into the envelope, tapping it proudly. "Don't worry, Harper. Once I get my company going, I might let you do some of my marketing if you're still freelancing." He smirked, and my chest went hot. Dad laughed. Mom laughed. Even Mason laughed. But I didn't. Something inside me went cold, solid, decisive. I wasn't angry. I was done. I pushed my chair back slowly, my fingers trembling only slightly. "I'm gonna head out," Mom frowned. "We haven't had dessert. I've lost my appetite." Dad narrowed his eyes. "Don't get emotional. This is why." I cut him off gently. "I'm not emotional. I just finally get it." "Get what?" Mason asked, still smug. "That nothing I do will ever be enough for any of you." The table fell silent for the first time all night. I picked up my coat. "You all see me as the unstable one, the one with silly dreams, the one who should be grateful for scraps while you pour support into the child who fits your narrative." Dad's jaw tightened. "Watch yourself." "No," I said calmly. "Watch me." Mom stood, reaching out like she wanted to pull me back into the role I'd played for years, the grateful daughter who swallowed everything. "Harper, sit down. Don't ruin this dinner." "It was already ruined," I whispered. "You just didn't notice because it wasn't ruined for him." Mason scoffed. "Come on, Harp. You're being dramatic." I met his eyes, unflinching.
No.
"I'm being done." And then I walked out, with no scene, no shouting, no tears. Just clarity. The next morning, I blocked the family group chat, silenced their calls, and turned off every emotional faucet I'd been pouring into them for years. I buried myself in work, taking every freelancing gig I could get. I slept 4 hours a night, studied brand strategy until sunrise, reinvested every cent I earned, and built my first prototype product by hand on my tiny kitchen counter. By month 6, I had a name. By month 9, I had funding, real funding from people who believed in me. By month 14, I had a warehouse, a team, and a brand that was exploding online. And by year 2, I stepped out of a rideshare into downtown Los Angeles, looked up and froze. There I was. My face. My name. My company. Plastered across a 50-foot billboard on Sunset Boulevard. A full-body electric jolt went through me. I'd made it. Without them.
Because they doubted me. Because they underestimated me.
Because they pushed me away and I pushed forward. I didn't send them the photo. I didn't have to. I found out later exactly how they saw it. And exactly how silent they went. The photo reached them faster than I expected. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing nonstop. Not from anyone I cared about, but from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Harper? Is this you on Sunset? Girl, your billboard is insane. Your brand is everywhere right now. I smiled into my pillow. I hadn't even posted it yet. By noon, my assistant, Layla, burst into my office holding her tablet. I think your family discovered the billboard. I raised a brow.
How?
She flipped the screen toward me. It was a screenshot of the family group chat, one I had left over 2 years ago, but apparently one of my cousins still had my number saved and forwarded the entire thing to me. At the top, MOM. Why is Harper's face on a building? Dad, is that even real? Mason, must be photoshopped. She couldn't afford something like that. Aunt Lisa, it's on CNN Business right now.
What?
Dad. Mason. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Layla grinned. Congrats. You broke them. I laughed, an honest, full laugh I hadn't felt in years. I didn't break anything. They just finally noticed what was in front of them the whole time. But the real shock came later that evening. I was leaving the office when I saw 3 missed calls from Dad, 2 from Mom, and 1 from Mason. The same people who had criticized me, minimized me, dismissed everything I built. They were suddenly desperate to talk. I didn't pick up. Not once. They didn't get to skip the years where I cried on my apartment floor wondering if I should just give up. They didn't get to bypass the nights when I worked until sunrise while they bragged about Mason's stable future. They didn't get to re-enter my life only after the world finally valued what they didn't. But leaving them on read wasn't revenge. Not yet. The real moment came 3 days later. My company had been invited to a major business expo, hundreds of brands, investors, founders, the whole ecosystem buzzing under one roof. I was scheduled to speak on the main stage about scaling a startup with no family support. I walked onto that stage in a tailored white suit, lights hitting me, cameras flashing, thousands of eyes waiting. And in the second row, dead center, were my parents and Mason. I nearly laughed out loud. They hadn't been invited. They had bought tickets. Front row. Mom lifted her hand in a tiny wave like we were old friends. Dad sat stiff, trying to look proud but mostly looking stunned. Mason kept adjusting his sleeves like he couldn't process being in a room full of people who admired me, not him. The host introduced me. Please welcome Harper Lane, CEO and founder of Lanewell, one of the fastest-growing wellness brands in the country. Thunderous applause. I stepped up to the mic, heartbeat steady, voice calm. I built this company from a 1-bedroom apartment with no funding, no investors, and no family cheerleading me. Sometimes, the people closest to you will doubt you the loudest. And that's exactly why you cannot depend on anyone else to validate your dreams. I paused just long enough to let it land. Mason's jaw tightened. Dad's head lowered. Mom blinked quickly, already misty-eyed. I finished my talk to a standing ovation. They stood too, but I walked right past them afterward, my security team guiding the crowd. I didn't owe them a reunion. Not then.
Not yet.
Because the real turning point, the moment everything shifted, was still coming. and they had no idea what was about to hit them next. 3 days after the expo, I was reviewing a shipment contract when my front desk buzzed my office line. "Harper," the receptionist whispered, "your family is here." My pen froze mid-signature. "Which family?" All of them." Before I could respond, she added, "They said they won't leave unless they talk to you." I leaned back, letting out a slow breath. Of course. The moment my name began trending, they suddenly remembered I existed. I'd expected a call, but showing up at my headquarters? That was bold. I straightened my blazer. "Send them to conference room B. And give me 5 minutes before you let them in." When I walked in, the glass table glowed under the fluorescent lights. My reflection was sharp, confident. I belong here. This room wasn't theirs. This room was the one place their opinions couldn't shrink me. Then the door opened. Mom walked in first, hands clasped tightly. Dad followed, trying to look authoritative despite the uncertainty in his eyes. Mason came last, wool coat over his arm, glancing around like he was evaluating the space he'd always assumed he'd own first. Mom smiled nervously. "Hi, sweetheart." Sweetheart. She hadn't called me that in years. "I'm busy," I said plainly. "Say what you came to say." Dad cleared his throat. "We owe you an apology." The words faltered at the edges, like they tasted unfamiliar leaving his mouth. Mom stepped forward. We didn't realize how much you were building. We underestimated you." I didn't move. "You didn't underestimate me. You dismissed me." They swallowed hard. Mason stuffed his hands in his pockets. "Look, Harper, we all misjudged things. But we're family. Maybe we can just reset." Reset. As if my years of grinding, doubting myself, crying over their criticism could be wiped away with a word. I met his eyes. "Did you come here because you miss me, or because you're embarrassed?" Silence. Dad shifted. "We saw the interviews. The articles. The billboard. It was shocking, yes, but also threatening." I offered. His jaw tightened, confirming everything without saying it. Mom finally broke. Her voice cracked. "We were wrong, Harper. Completely wrong. Your work is real. Your career is real. And you've built something incredible without anyone's help. That takes strength we didn't see before." I let the words sit there, heavy, overdue. Then I decided to give them a chance to be honest. "Tell me," I said softly. "Back then, why didn't you invest even a fraction in me? Why was Mason the only one you believed in?" Dad let out a breath he'd been holding for years. "Because he fit the mold we understood. College. Corporate work. Stability. We didn't know how to value what you did. So we assumed it wasn't worth much." Mom added quietly, "And we were afraid you'd fail. We didn't want to waste money." Mason glanced away. And there it was, the truth I had carried alone for years. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for finally saying it." Mom reached for my hand. "Can we fix this? Please?" I gently pulled my hand back. "Fixing it will take time. Trust doesn't rebuild in a single meeting." They exchanged helpless glances. But I continued. "I'm not shutting the door on you. I just need space and honesty from now on." Relief washed over their faces. Dad exhaled. "We'll earn it. Whatever pace you set." I stood. The meeting was over. As they left the room, Mason lingered at the doorway. "You really impressed everyone at the expo. I didn't know you had that in you." I smiled, not bitter, not triumphant. Just free. "I always had it in me, Mason. You just never looked closely enough." He nodded, shame softening his features, and walked out. But what none of them knew, not yet, was that my biggest public milestone was only 24 hours away. And when it happened, their shocked silence would make the group chat meltdown look mild. The next morning, my phone buzzed before sunrise. "Layla, it's happening. Check every news outlet. Now." I shot upright in bed, grabbed my laptop, and clicked the first headline. Lanewell signs exclusive national partnership with major retail chain. CEO Harper Lane expands to 1,200 stores. My heart pounded. This was the moment I'd spent years building toward, but the media attention was even bigger than I expected. Every outlet was covering it. Photos of me shaking hands with the retail chain's executive team were everywhere. And then my phone buzzed again. A video notification. Layla again. You should watch this. It was a clip from local news, my parents' local news, where a reporter stood in front of the very billboard that held my face. The headline behind her read, "Small-town woman makes national impact. Family didn't see this success coming." I winced.
Ouch.
But then the camera cut to the reporter interviewing a couple standing on a sidewalk, and my stomach dropped. It was my parents. Dad looked like he'd put on his best jacket in a hurry. Mom smoothed her hair nervously. The reporter asked, "How does it feel knowing your daughter is now the CEO of one of the fastest-growing brands in the country?" Mom swallowed hard. "We're incredibly proud of her. We didn't recognize her vision at first." Dad added, "We thought we knew what success looked like. She proved us wrong." The reporter smiled. "Have you spoken to her yet?" Dad hesitated. "We hope to. We're giving her space. She earned it." Mom nodded, eyes glossy. "She's strong. Stronger than we ever understood." I sat there, stunned. Not because they were proud, but because, for once, their words weren't excuses, or blame, or thinly veiled criticism. They were just honest. A quiet knock pulled me from my thoughts. Layla peeked in. "They're outside." My breath caught. "My parents." "No," she said gently. "Your whole family." I exhaled sharply. Of course. The news clip had aired. The partnership announcement was everywhere. My name was trending again. This time, I didn't hide. I walked downstairs, through the glass lobby, past the gold logo of my company displayed above the entrance. And there they were on the sidewalk, Mom, Dad, and Mason, looking small against the size of the building I'd built. Mom stepped forward first. We saw the announcement, and the interview, and everything. Dad nodded, his voice steady but soft. "You're remarkable, Harper." Mason shoved his hands in his pockets. "You're bigger than any of us ever dreamed." I crossed my arms, not defensive, just aware. "Why are you here?" Mom's voice cracked. "To say we're sorry. Again. And to tell you something we should have told you years ago." She reached into her purse and pulled out the old family envelope, the same type Mason's $40,000 check had come in. My stomach tightened. But when she handed it to me, it was empty. "It's not money," Mom said. "It's a message." Dad cleared his throat. "We can't repay what you endured, but we can make sure we never repeat it. We want to support you, not your brother, not a version of you we imagined. You." Mason stepped closer. "And I want to work to earn a real relationship with you, Harper. Not the fake one I coasted on." For the first time, their words didn't feel like guilt dressed as affection. They felt real. I took a slow breath. I'm not ready for a full reset, but I'm open to rebuilding. Slowly. Mom nodded quickly. "Anything you need. Any pace you choose." Dad smiled genuinely. "We're behind you now." And for the first time in years, I felt something soften inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But possibility. I stepped forward and hugged them, carefully, briefly, but willingly. Mason exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for a decade. We weren't magically healed. We weren't suddenly perfect. But we were finally on a path that didn't require me to shrink to fit their expectations. My revenge wasn't the billboard. It wasn't the silence in their group chat. It wasn't even the headlines. My revenge was becoming someone they could no longer overlook. My happy ending? I built myself so high they had to lift their heads to see me. And this time, I didn't look away.